Cabo Keys. Let's go,
That would be great.
Cabo Keys.
Alright.
Cold Keys.
How's everybody doing today?
Amazing.
How are we feeling?
Great. How are you?
Feeling great.
Wow.
Get some more energy going in the room. How are you doing today? Alright, sweet.
Cool. Big fun center for this. Grady. Grady's always in the front. He's ready to
Feeling
learn.
so good.
Alright, guys.
Alright, y'all.
How do you scream when you get around me?
Bitch.
Are you on the Wi-Fi?
Gotta have
Cool,
fun.
What's up? Alright. So this is something that I kind of watched a couple videos on and kind of created a little bit. It's just like a, what's it when you use each letter and then you make like
An acronym.
It's an acronym. This is a sales acronym, okay? Who feels like they don't, like you don't have any issues like getting people interested, like, you know, you can explain your whole pitch, but once you drop price, then you have an issue. Most people? Yeah, because we're all qualifying like every single day, right? And we, most of the time, will qualify somebody that, you know, will pass or qualify. So, closer, clarify why you're there and what you're doing. So, like, very quickly off the rip, you want to establish, like, why you're there and what you're doing. Now, in the first, like, 4 seconds, or really, like, 2 seconds, they're going to decide if they want to, like, listen to you or not. So it's really important to establish control of the sale, or just the conversation in general. Establish the control in the very first few seconds, so that way, you know, we all hate it, like when we're getting interrupted and someone keeps like trying to interrupt you and all that. So establish control when you first get there, especially like if you have a bull customer, you know, you just want to match a mirror, kind of like Lamont says. So you match a mirror. If you have a bull, just be very stern. Like, hey, you know, it's super important I talk to you, let you know what's going on in your neighborhood. I always tell them like your neighborhood, so they can like take ownership of it. So that way, they feel like they have to be a part of whatever you're doing, right? Because you're there in their neighborhood. So I feel like that's one that's really good. And then 2, so like labeling them with a problem. So I feel like this is something that I've been doing really good to kind of help me sell more. So even if they haven't had a direct problem themselves, obviously somebody in the neighborhood, in any neighborhood, has had a problem at one time or another, right? So then you kind of use that as like an umbrella for the entire neighborhood. So what I do in my pitch a lot now is I'll say, so my customer, Miss Gina down the street, she had her car stolen last Friday. So what we did for her was we set her up with the outdoor camera. Her biggest thing though was the actual alarm system. And this is a great transition for the actual alarm. So that way, so what you do is you say, hey, yeah, so like my customer, Miss Gina down the street, had her car stolen last Friday, but her biggest thing was the alarm. The main reason being is because she said, well, if they came and they got my car, who's not to say they'd come back and try to get in my house? So what we did for her was we covered all of her doors, her windows, so that way in case there was a break-in, it would call the police. And most people are like, oh yeah, that makes sense, right? And then that's a great transition that you can use for the actual alarm system and to build value and emotional value, right? So now you've created them with an issue, and obviously we know how to solve their issue with the products that we have, right? So I feel like a lot of people too, you guys, like, we're all good, like, we try to fish for a hot button, like this camera, and like if they're not biting, I know we said it before, but just give them one. So like what I'll do is I'll say, this is the camera that we've been doing for most of your neighbors around here because of X, Y, and Z. So whatever it is. So like I've been doing all outdoors mainly. So I'm just like, yeah, so the one that we've been doing for all the neighbors is the outdoor camera because of the issues with the cars. And then I'll say, you feel like you'd use that one or the doorbell. And then obviously they say the outdoor because I built a ton of value on it and customized it to the problem in the neighborhood, right? So then that way, that's the one they're gonna pick. And then if they have had an issue, you want to overview the pain. So like get them to actually go back in their head and like, how did that feel? So like, oh, you had your car broken into? Oh my gosh, that's horrible. Yeah, when did it happen? What did they take? How did that feel? That must be, and then I'll even say like, it sucks because obviously you work really hard for what you have. Obviously it sucks when somebody comes and takes what you worked hard for, right? Nobody wants something that they worked for taken from them.
A little one that you can tie into there too, if they try and say that you can't afford it, like yeah, if you can't afford the 60 bucks, it's gonna be very hard to afford a break-in.
Right.
If they're stealing your stuff, how much the money is that you're gonna have to replace? $2 grand in tools. If you can't afford 70, you can't afford $2 grand. You can't afford, you know what I'm saying? The stuff that they're getting stolen. So.
One thing I learned about it, how did that make you feel? This guy Jeremy Miner talked about, and they say like, yeah, it made you feel like violated. One thing you can do with your tonality and asking, be like, violated? Like, how do you mean? And like, just tie on to that little word. If they give you an emotional word, yeah, I felt scared, or like, it pissed me off. And pissed off, like, how do you mean? Yeah. It seems like a stupid question to ask, but that'll like, gives them the room to vent on their emotions, which further ties into...
What do you mean you're pissed off?
Yeah.
And
another thing...
It's about how you ask.
Yeah, and to add to that too, so like when you go to ask that question, sometimes why can come off like we don't mean it in a rude way, but sometimes when someone says something and you're like, why? Like you come off like what, like kind of rude. So a good way to do it instead is say, what would make you say that? Or like Lamont said, how do you mean? Like instead of why, replace it with what would make you say that?
And in a curious tone.
Yeah, like oh, what would make you say that? Instead of why. Like it just sounds a lot better. And then they actually like explain in detail.
It's a dry. It's dry.
Right.
Why?
Yeah, so try to overview their pain, and then what you do, tie down their pains and their problems, and then you sell them. I put vacation, but obviously not vacation. It's just like you sell them the dream, like you're selling them the peace of mind, right? So you're selling them on the idea of it. So it's like you have their problems, you sell them on the solution of it, and how that's going to make them feel. Because at the end of the day, we're not selling security, we're selling peace of mind. So, so if you explain that high enough, then you can close them. So when you sell them the vacation, if you do get an objection, right, which I mean 9 times out of 10 you probably will, use your tie downs from the pain that it caused them. So like before, it's like, well, like you said, it really sucked when someone got in your car and stole your wallet. And then, like you said, it made you feel really bad. What we get to do for you is we put up the cameras and we use the relevant alert so you can make sure that that doesn't happen again, right? And like you said too, just like Miss Gina, you felt the same way, that if they're getting in your cars, the main concern is obviously the house, because everything that's important in here. And there's stuff that you can't replace, like yourself or your phone, right? So what we do is we get to pay for all the equipment, the installation and the warranties, and I'll use it as a tie down, so that way you can have the peace of mind knowing if something did happen, someone's going to be on the way. What's up, Taylor?
How do you label them with a problem?
Huh?
What is your?
How do you label them with a problem?
Yeah.
Just by like crime drops, like.
But how do you get them to agree to the crime drops?
Well,
like for their house specifically.
For their house specifically.
So you can tell them about Gina, but then how do you attach their pain to Gina's pain because they didn't feel it?
Just explain Gina's pain, like how it makes Gina feel. Most people can relate to like, having something taken from them. Like even if they haven't had a break-in or they haven't had their cars broken into. Nobody likes to, have something taken that they worked hard for. So usually what I'll do is I'll just like explain how Gina felt about it, and also like what her main concern was, right? So like I said, what I use a lot for that is like, and like Miss Gina was telling me, since she had her car broken into, we got to pay for the camera, but her main thing was the actual alarm, because she said that if they're getting into her car, she's not to say they come back and try to get in her house, right?
And then you can find out about it, and hopefully nothing like that has ever happened to you.
Yeah.
And then they'll tell me if it's happened or not.
Yeah, I never ask like, have you had any issues or has anything happened to you? I don't ask that because even if something did happen, most times they'll just tell you no anyway. But when you're explaining other stuff in the neighborhood, most of the times they'll come out and say like, oh yeah, we had that once or twice, and then like that's when like real, right? So then that's when you try to like pull it out of them or whatever happened, or even if it happened next door is close enough for them. So it's like, or even if it's 2 doors down, if it's on the same street, like yeah, literally right down there they got the back door kicked in. It's 2 doors down from you, right? Now, and I'll always say like, hopefully you never need this. Hopefully nothing ever happens. Knock on wood. But if something were to happen, obviously it's going to give you the peace of mind knowing that the police will be on the way, right? And then you can even ask them like, how would that make you feel? Like knowing that if you had a break-in and the police on the way, like how would that make you feel? So you're just getting them to like, you're kind of, what you're doing is like painting the picture and getting them to actually like, envision it, yeah, like picture it, visualize it, so that they can actually, you know, sell themselves almost. We really don't even need to do most of the stuff. And then like obviously like explaining away their concerns is just like if they have a concern with the price, if they have a concern because they don't understand anything. So another thing that I started doing, and I stole this from Brady, was when I'm done explaining the equipment, I'll say, does that all seem pretty easy? And they'll usually like, yeah. If they're not, then you're not getting the, oh, well, I have to think about it when you drop price because there's actually a hidden objection that they didn't understand about how something worked or the program itself, why we're paying for it. Like you say, does that all seem pretty easy? I haven't even dropped price yet, so they can't, you know, say, oh, well, let me think about the price because there's really something else, right? So I'll say, does that seem pretty easy? And even me asking that throughout the week, I've had people like, well, how does this or this or this work? And then like you just, what it does is it gives you a second to explain it, so then you don't have to combat an objection that's not even a true objection, right?
When do you ask that question? Sorry.
As soon as I'm done explaining equipment right before I price drop. So like after I'm explaining the cameras and the alarm, like as soon as I'm done explaining and I'm getting ready to price drop, that's when I'll ask, does that all seem pretty easy to you, like working the cameras and the alarm system? Yeah, that seems pretty simple. Okay, cool. And then I'll go into my price drop and I'll say, perfect, boom, 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 boom. I price drop. My price drop's actually pretty money. I'll show you how it works. So I'll do the price drop for the basic 82. Okay, so this is what I do. So I say, perfect. Now for the, in my neighborhood, I'm in a low income neighborhood, so I'll just do what I've been doing all week. So with the affordability program, what we get to do is take care of all of the cost of the equipment for you. So we actually pay for the $1,200. Now, the affordability program, that's money.
That's
Yeah, no, because it's, no, the reason that it works is because we're in a low income neighborhood, right? So obviously nobody's gonna go out and buy a $1,200 security system, okay? So I mean, and maybe if you did this, you would have sold this week. So, if you say, hey, so we're gonna pay for the $1,200 of equipment for you, and then we also get to cover your upfront costs. So usually it would cost about $200 to install everything. We waive that down to zero, so you don't pay anything today. When you're talking to broke people, they don't want to pay anything today, so then that way you make it a pretty big part, okay? Now, when I go to drop price, I'll say, so usually with ADT, it's about $120 a month, and I'll point at the cell unit. What we get to do for you with the affordability program, in the neighborhood, we get it down to 69 and we keep your price down, okay? So then that way, that's the only, like, that's what you say, okay? So we get it down to 69, that's literally the only thing you pay, okay?
You go straight into qualifying right after?
Yeah. And well, what I'll say, and what I've been doing now, I'll say, does that seem pretty fair? And like, I mean, you can't really argue with getting a discount of like whatever it is, $50 or whatever, right? So,
really easy response.
they'll be like, yeah, that seems pretty fair. Now, if I do still have an objection, now when I say, does that seem pretty fair on the price? Now, the only objection that I'll get when I say, does that seem pretty fair, is, oh, I just don't know if I can do the 60 or the 70, or I don't know if I can do it right now. So now I know that it's not an issue with the equipment or the program because I've already explained that and asked if it made sense. I know that I have an objection on the actual price. So I know I either need to build more value or I just need to back pocket close an extra camera or pay for a first month or pay them $100 to get it in. And usually it works. I mean, I'll be like, so would you say like your issue is just with the 69? Well, yeah, I just don't know if I could do that right now. Okay, so what did we pick for the first month for you? As long as you can keep a secret for me and don't go tell all your neighbors, because I'll have to come out and pocket a lot of money. Would you say you're pretty good at keeping a secret? Yeah? Okay, cool. You don't talk to your neighbors? No? Okay. Well, look, I tell you what, literally all you have to do is just promise me that you'll keep that sign out. I'll pay for the first month for you, just don't go tell Samantha down the street, okay? And I'll have my technician come over and install everything. It only takes him an hour. I'm gonna schedule it right now. And then I'll start qualifying.
Hey, after you price drop, as soon as you say, that seems pretty fair, and then.
Usually I'll just read their body language.
Yeah.
I won't wait for an actual answer.
Right.
I'll just kind of read their body language. So usually when I say 69, that's all you pay. Does that seem pretty fair? They'll like just nod their head, and I'll say, okay, sweet. What's a good phone number for you to call when the alarm goes off? And I'll just soft close.
And then what they're like, oh, and then you go into the
Well, I mean, what? If they say what?
pocket closing. If they're like, oh no, like I don't want to do it like right now. Like once you start trying to like soft close.
They're like, oh, I don't want to do it right now. Yeah, I mean, totally fine. That's kind of why ADT sends me here. What would stop you from doing something like this right now?
Oh yeah, it's just the price. Like it's just too much, more than I want to pay.
Yeah. What do you think you'd be able to like afford?
Like $40 a month.
Probably like $40 a month. I gotcha. So yeah, I mean, we can do the $40. What would you say would be like the biggest thing out of all of this for you? Would you say it's the actual security system that's going to protect your home and family, or would you say it's like the camera that's going to like watch over the car?
Yeah, probably the camera.
You said probably the camera would be like the biggest thing for you.
Yeah.
And what about it?
Just being able to, see what's going on.
See what's going on.
You said about the neighbor getting her car broken into.
Right,
Like,
yeah.
some people walking around.
Yeah, and you said that happened to you too?
Yeah,
Or
yeah.
no?
Yeah.
It did? Okay. And what did they take?
They just took some loose change.
Just some loose change?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it still probably sucks though to have random people come in like pulling on your car, right? Like, it's, if you did have something important in there and they took it, like, obviously you worked pretty hard. That would suck, right? Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, I mean, what we can do for you, I tell you what, if the camera's like your biggest thing, obviously we'll do the one camera in the front. We can put one in the back for you as long as like you don't tell the neighbors about it, because we're really supposed to only give you one camera. Since you really like the cameras a lot, I'll put another camera for you. Where would you want to put it? Would you say like the back, the side?
Yeah, probably the back.
Probably with the back, like watching the back door, make sure people aren't like kicking in the back door. Okay, cool. Yeah, we'll put that one back there for you. I'll cover the cost of it, so it's not going to increase the monthly or anything. It'll stay at the 69, and it'll stay price locked. Now my technician, he'll come and install everything for you professionally. It only takes him like an hour, okay? Alright, cool. What was your phone number?
Because I've been doing that, the pretty getting like, oh, that seems pretty fair, right? And they're like, yeah. And then I'll go, okay, you want to call you?
Yeah.
And then they're like, go to get it, and they're like, oh, no, I just didn't want to, I don't want to do this right now. Like, that type of shit, like, constantly. So it's,
Yeah, I'll just like find out like, I'll just find out like, try to get them to talk more. Because if you're kind of like the main one talking, sometimes, you're not really like understanding if they're following or what, so you kind of want to get them to talk. Just ask them like very simply, okay, well what did you like? And then it kind of gives you something to build off of, right? And then like, it's okay to bargain with people, like, be like, oh, okay, well we'll do this or we'll do this, like, what would make it worth it for you? Or you can do like on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being like, no, we probably would never do this, or 10 being like, yeah, we would do it. Where do you find yourself? I had a lady yesterday and she was like, I'm a 7. All right, what do we need to do to get you to a 10? Well, my main concern is X, Y, and Z. Boom, all right, I solved that. I got a same dude, so. And it would have been a think it over, never got called back, so.
Yeah.
You really just gotta identify what the actual issue, like the underlying objection is, and obviously we all know how to overcome pretty much any objection because we've been trained to do so. So we don't have an issue there.
sorry, what if it's somebody who's like, you're going through everything and they like, don't really give a shit? Like, you can tell they don't really give a shit. Like,
Well, you're probably,
Oh,
honestly, you're
what's
probably
the-
just with the wrong customer.
yeah, like just move
Like,
on, probably.
and that's another thing. We spend a lot of time with just the wrong person, right? So, and that's something that this week especially, I've had to do. Like, if I can tell, like, all right, this lady's gonna be a waste of my time. If I'm gonna have to be here, even if I'm gonna get the sale, but I'm gonna be here for 3 hours, it's not worth it for me because I can go sell 2 or 3 other people in that time frame. So it's like identifying your customer.
One good one you can do too, if I'm talking to them, like no, and I can tell they're not giving me anything. Now obviously we're not gonna pay for a house if they're not gonna use it. It's a failed investment on our part if we pay for a whole house. Based off what I show you, what do you like the most about this? Because you need to advertise, just tell your friends, tell your neighbors, what do you like about it? What do you think you would use? And I shut up. And I mean, he's gonna make me, then I'm gonna figure out like, if he's hiding something in here, I'm gonna pull a hot button out of him, or I'm gonna be like, okay, this isn't going anywhere.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna leave
Well,
here.
that guy
tell you
yesterday
you're
was-
not gonna use it, and you go, all right, see you later.
So even if we paid for this and you're out, and you were just had to keep a sign out, you wouldn't want this for your house. No, we wouldn't, okay, see ya.
Yeah. The other guy yesterday just kept being like, yeah, sure. Yeah, sure. Like,
Yeah.
wasn't giving, I'm just like, I don't
Were you
know.
in his house or just shut on the door?
I was on the door. I was just doing the pitch
Yeah.
and just trying to like ask questions during the pitch, and he's just like, yeah, sure, yeah, good. I mean, sure.
Yeah.
Just like, okay, like obviously you don't care.
Yeah.
And then he kept asking like, oh, well, yeah, just give me the pamphlet, I'll look at it. I'm like, nope. That's alright. I'll just give it to one of your neighbors.
Yeah.
All good.
Yeah, sometimes like some people just aren't like we're not gonna sell everybody, you know. Some people just aren't gonna do it, and like you as the sales rep kind of have to identify who is gonna be worth your time and who's not, and you know you just kind of gotta roll with it, you know.
Also identifying your types of buyers. Make sure you're recognizing your types of buyers. I mean, some buyers legit just don't give a shit.
Yeah, yeah.
Like some people, you're not
just
you're-
a waste of time.
Some people you're not telling them what they need to hear. You know.
Yeah. And then the last one just would be to reinforce their decision. So like a money one, and one that's really good is like so what's the like I know you use it sometimes. It's like how do you feel that you actually did something to be proactive about the
Yeah, it's
security of your own family?
Yeah, if something were to happen, how much better would it make you feel knowing you were proactive and you did something about it? You got
Yeah.
the system before the fact rather than
Yeah.
after the fact.
So like reinforcing their decision before you leave. This is like a final like nail in the coffin. Just like reinforcing their decision. So it's like, yeah, obviously you're making a good decision a day, protecting being proactive about your security. And how does that make you feel knowing that you were proactive about protecting your home and family?
Yeah, Ron, when do you say that usually?
At the very end, just like it's a nail in the coffin after you finish your DocuSign. Usually like the technician's on the way, you got the app downloaded, you got your number saved in their phone, did welcome call, did everything. And then you use that as like just the one like nail in the coffin. Like, how does it make you feel that you did something, to protect your own family? It feels pretty good. Just like reinforce their decision.
That's money.
Yeah. And it's just like a kind of like a bulletproof way to make sure like they're actually going to stick with it, because then it actually gets them thinking, because when you leave the house, most of the times when like right before you leave, you probably ask like, all right, cool, any questions or anything you guys have for us? No? Okay, cool. As soon as you leave, they're probably going to have like 10 questions.